Good afternoon. It's been a very long day full of lots of information and, really good discussions. So I'm listed on the program as being from the Hamilton Immigration Partnership Council, but I just want to say that I'm actually not speaking in that role today because I'm very new in that role. Just last month I switched positions within the city. So the work that I'm presenting today is more from working for the city in economic development. So you're going to hear a bit about that. So I think it's very interesting to have a perspective coming from a municipality on this. And this from Hamilton, so you might recognize this picture. This is Hamilton City Hall, an iconic building in a beautiful mid-century modern. It's got the Happy Holidays sign up, so it's not very seasonal right now. But what does a municipality have to say about international students, and why would a municipality care? Well, immigration is a federal and provincially shared jurisdiction. Municipalities have no jurisdiction over immigration, but on the ground, many students' first experiences of government, aside from applying and receiving their study permits and visas and the like, is at the municipal level. And traditionally, the institutions that have recruited international students have been agnostic about whether the students stay in Canada or not after graduation. That's not really something that they focus on. The fact that we're having this workshop today, I think, is showing how attitudes and views on international students are really changing. Yet, as we've heard this morning, half of international students, or in the one survey, 68%, signal their intentions to want to stay in Canada after graduation, sometimes just to work, sometimes to become permanent residents. And so today, from a municipal perspective, municipalities see immigrants as a source of, international students as potential immigrants, workers, and taxpayers. So what about Hamilton? I started working for the city of Hamilton I think it was in 2012. I was retained on a part-time basis to become a city employee to write a study, an immigrant attraction plan. At that time, there was one city councillor who was particularly concerned and got the ear of the city manager that Hamilton wasn't attracting the immigrants like it used to back in the days of it being a steel town. We still receive 3,000 to 4,000 newcomers a year, and plus many other international students, as you'll see in a second. But the days are long gone when someone could come with no English skills, no education background, get a good job, work in the steel mill, support a family, buy a home, send their kids to post-secondary. So what can the city do in this changing economic climate with the rise of knowledge workforce and the like to become still an attractive city for newcomers? So I began to work for the city to develop an attraction plan. And part of that plan, we had some starting points, which is that immigrants are an asset to our community, because it's not a given that everybody sees that, right? And I'm here preaching to the choir, so I don't need to go into that. We also know that immigrants are very mobile, more mobile than the Canadian-born population, and that they follow opportunities. So if they come to our city, they don't have a good experience, they're likely to just leave and go somewhere else where they find more opportunities. The city needs the city needs immigrants for economic growth. And I think most importantly for the purposes of today's presentation is that most immigrants to our city have some pre-existing ties there. Either they already have family or friends in our community, or they've come for post-secondary education and made a connection that way. So we came up with an immigrant attraction plan that focused on these 6 key elements. The top is welcoming community, which would be familiar to people who've been with Pathways to Prosperity for a while, but I always said that was my subversive agenda in economic development, was if newcomers to our community had a positive experience, they would tell their family and friends, and that would be our best economic attraction plan that we could undertake. But you'll notice that among those pillars or petals is retaining international students, and so that's how I got kind of into the international student piece. This is just a brief overview of who's coming to Hamilton. It's 25% foreign-born. We have a large refugee percentage population and 41% economic class. So this is Mohawk College. Mohawk now has, so if I were to add this year's data on this slide, they're actually above 3,000 international students now. And I don't have slides. I'm recycling this slide from another presentation. But McMaster has 3,000 international students as well, 1,000 graduate students plus 2,000 undergraduate students. Then we also have Columbia International College, which is the largest private boarding school in Canada with 2,000 international students. But they're all at the secondary and actually some now at middle school level. So the city's interest is to retain these international students. If I think about immigrant attraction, and that would include retaining international students. So what would keep international students in our community? I think two main things. One is giving them networks. Many international students lack networks off campus. They lack networks beyond their own international student peer groups. So they lack social networks and also professional networks. So improve their networks. Number two, give them access to employment opportunities. We've heard already today that employment prospects are top of mind for many international students. So I started to think more broadly about what we might do in the city. And we have a young professionals network in Hamilton called Hamilton Hive. That was an initiative of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce and the city, started in about 2010, I think it was. So it's an umbrella organization for young professionals. It has about 20 different member groups. Some of them focus on, there's one that's for entrepreneurs, one for architects, one for media professionals, and the like. And I thought, okay, we should create a new young professionals group under the Hamilton Hive umbrella. And so I knew a few former international students who had made that transition to being young professionals in our community. And I invited them out for lunch, one by one, and asked them, hey, would you be interested in working on a project to try to make it easier for current international students to stay in our community? And they all said yes. And then in some cases, I didn't have a contact to Mohawk College. I didn't know anyone there, so I asked the people in their international student services for some, recommendations of individuals. And so that small group of people, think of that Margaret Mead quote about the power of small groups. We started meeting in spring of 2014, and we met every other week for May, June, July, I think it was. It came up with the name Global Hamilton Connect, which is not a big departure from my role is called Global Hamilton, so we decided to call this young professionals group Global Hamilton Connect, which actually, in hindsight, was not a great idea because people get us confused all the time. They think that Global Hamilton Connect is the city's initiative, and this is a separate young professionals network. Also, they have their own Twitter handle, and I never did, in Global Hamilton, so people were always contacting them, trying to get me, and it wasn't right. So just note to file about marketing and branding. We met, we came up with the name, and we never wanted to be, this is a qualifier, we recognize that international student services are very important on campuses, and we're not trying to duplicate those services. We're just trying to add kind of a new layer to what was already existing on campus. Because as you've heard this morning, there's very rich array of services and opportunities on campus, but as a municipality and as young professionals, we wanted to bring students off campus. We wanted to get them outside of the student bubble. We wanted to expose them to what's going on in the city, fun things to do, other people outside of their own student networks and the like. So we worked on the imaging, branding. This was our vision, enabling international students and young immigrants, and that was a big discussion. Are we just about international students or also young immigrants? To be fully aware of and have access to local opportunities to live, work, and play. And that's a selfie from some of the members of our executive, back in our first year. 3 of them are still on the executive, 2 of them have moved on, and that's very good, very healthy. So we, at first, did encounter a little bit of tension with some of the local post-secondary because they said, well, we already do that, so why are you trying to do that? So it took a while of conversations and also some staffing changes at those institutions and meeting the right people in order to sort of make progress on that agenda. And then, what happened was I went out for lunch for a coffee with someone in the School of Graduate Studies and told them what I was trying to do. And he said, "Would you like $5,000 to help realize your goals?" And I said, yes. That wasn't even on my radar screen at that time, but that really helped us to be able to offer programming that was free for anyone to come to, and to pay for speaker fees and venue rentals and the like, because we were trying to operate off campus. So we launched in fall 2014. There is a website. You can look at globalhamiltonconnect.ca, and it's an independent group. It's separate from the city. They have their own executive, their own terms of reference, and I'm an advisor to the group. And now we have 3 advisors, so I'm not the only one, which is also really great. So what do we do? What does Global Hamilton Connect do? Different things. This was a tour that we did with Mohawk, where Mohawk College actually paid to rent a city bus, and we had some of our members of our executive on the bus, and they went around the city, all over the city, and just showed them different things as part of international student orientation. This is a bit unusual for us. It's a good picture, so I put it in. But we have done social events like hikes. For example, the Bruce Trail runs through our city, and we had someone from the Bruce Trail Association lead a hike, and none of the students had ever been in the woods since they'd been studying in Hamilton. They couldn't believe that this was close to their campuses. We do professional development events like workshops, how to use LinkedIn, how to pitch yourself, how to give an elevator pitch about your interests, how to network, why volunteering is important, and the like. We also have offered immigration-focused events. We have an immigration lawyer come in and talk about pathways to permanent residency. And that was our biggest event ever in January 2015, when express entry had just come into effect. We had 150 people show up for one of our events. So I would say one of the real benefits of this group has actually been to the members of the executive themselves. Just as you saw these young people up here today who clearly have some bond with each other from working on this presentation, and maybe in other ways as well. The members of our executive really have helped each other out with immigration advice, with sharing experiences, with networking, job search, etc. And so it's been a very positive experience that way. And then this year we had a new program, which were ambassadors, because as our young professionals get older, we have our connections to the campuses aren't as strong. And we realized that, like, a lot of international students don't read their emails and don't know about the events that we're putting on. And so we were able to get a small grant from the province, $2,800, and we paid an honoraria to 8 different international students to help promote our events on campus, and to also provide feedback on events and host their own events. And we had interestingly, for a $200 honorarium, we had a lot of applicants. It was quite interesting and very exciting kind of group interviews that we had to run in order to choose them, because we didn't have a lot of time. So those are 5 of our ambassadors, and that just ran as a very short kind of pilot project for this spring. So what other things do we do besides Global Hamilton Connect? We have worked on an international student retention action plan. So the city has used its role as a kind of neutral party and a convener and a facilitator to bring together interested stakeholders, the relevant people from our local post-secondary and secondary institutions, and also our workforce planning board, to talk about international students in our community and how we can work together. So we just book a meeting room at City Hall, bring them in, keep them in contact with each other, and bring them together. One of the things we did as part of that was a brochure, because I realized early on that universities and colleges it's very important to students to know more about the surroundings in which they're going to be studying. And they have specific interests around safety, in particular, cultural opportunities and the like. And I could see that some of the information that was being given out about City of Hamilton wasn't even accurate, and it wasn't that attractive either. So we developed, with input from this committee about what international students would like to find in a brochure, we developed a brochure. I only have 10 copies, which is why they're not out over there, but if anybody's interested, I've got 10 copies. And we also developed PDF versions, because a lot of schools just use internet kind of email mailings. So that brochure is it's actually an attraction brochure. We also had a one-day International Student Summit And this was aimed at, not at incoming international students, just as our Global Hamilton Connect group is really aimed at people in their 3rd and 4th year and graduate students, which has made it a challenge with reaching the college population more than the university population because they're here for such a short time. So we had this International Student Summit. We did it on a shoestring budget. We did have some sponsorship, but we had a whole day of keynote speakers. The keynote speakers were people who had come here as international students themselves, who are now working and living, in our community. We had a panel on why Hamilton, what are some of the good things and what are some of the challenges about living in Hamilton. We're not just trying to be a sales job, but we want to show, the positives and the negatives. We had different workshops and breakout groups, and people could choose what kind of workshop to go to, whether it be something on your housing rights, the hidden job market, how to brand yourself, those kinds of things. What sectors in the economy in Hamilton are growing and which ones are shrinking. We did have attendance challenges with this summit. You'll see that it was on November 23rd, which is not a good time of semester to hold an event, but also all the Ontario colleges had been on strike, and they went back to school, I think it was November 21st. So it was really hard to get anybody from Mohawk College there. But it was a good event, and one of the benefits of that is now our local university is saying that they want to hold one next year. So just quickly, I'm out of time, but other municipal initiatives. I talked about the advisory team. We work on Hamilton Economic Development is a partner in something called Employment Crawl, which is for all students, not just international students, but we market it especially to international students, which is renting buses and taking them around the city, and they get a tour of different places of employment. Some are small employers, some are large employers, and the students get to go in and hear from, they get to walk through these places of employment and learn about places that might potentially employ them in the future. And it's divided by sector, so it'd be like creative industries, engineering jobs, and the like. We're also talking about resurrecting the airport program. So City of Toronto had coordinated an airport welcome program from 2011 to 2015. That's no longer operating, but may be resurrected. And we're also working on a web page specifically for international students on the city site. And just by way of closing, this is a much broader initiative. This is something that the Immigration Partnership has been involved in, the Hamilton for All campaign, but it's part of that making the city a welcoming community. So this was a bus shelter an ad campaign that ran over the past 6 months, and I don't have time to explain it really, but it's not aimed at international students, but if you were an international student and you saw this campaign, I think it would hopefully resonate with you. So I only had time to talk about Hamilton today. There are other cities doing other types of attraction initiatives for international students, retention. I mentioned Toronto. Also London, Ontario has an international student page and portal. Edmonton did something in economic development in 2006 where they tried to reach out to employers and make the business case for hiring international students. I read about that in someone else's report, but I've never been able to find out anything more than that. So if anybody knows, let me know. I know the City of Ottawa also hosted a Welcome Day event for international students. And of course, the Atlantic provinces do quite a lot around international students. They even have leeway to do entrepreneurship programs, which are not really allowed under rest of Canadian immigration and transition. So that's a very quick overview of what City of Hamilton is doing, and it's really nice to be here as a municipality and to be here engaged with this broader community of other people and from around the country. So I thank you very much for the invitation to be here, and happy to answer any questions later at the break or whatever. Okay, thanks.